Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. For those of you that aren't familiar with me, my name is Daniel Pino, and I am a longtime Microsoft Access and now Office Apps MVP. I believe going back to 2010 was my first MVP award. After yesterday's debacle with Microsoft 365 not working at all for me, I woke up this morning and to my great surprise, everything was back in order, functional. I did absolutely nothing. So once again, just goes to show how unreliable Microsoft 365 subscriptions truly are. And that, like I said in my description of yesterday's article, the rug can be pulled from right under you at any point in time without any justification or notification. So anyway, today, the point of this video is I'm actually trying to do the video I tried to do yesterday but was prohibited to by Microsoft. And what is it? I'm going to try to answer a couple questions I've gotten now regarding the new web browser control and how we can use it to either set a value into an input element or retrieve the value inside an existing input element. So, these are things we do a lot. It's very common, obviously, in Access forms to be able to, push a value and pull a value. And people have asked me, how can we do the same with a web page? And it really, really, really is simple. It's just a question of knowing how. So that's what we're going to do today. And I'm going to throw in a couple other little minor things just to give people some ideas and hints, because there are other aspects that, they sort of go hand in hand with this. What we need to understand, if you haven't figured it out by now with the new web browser control, is everything that has to do with interacting with the web page is JavaScript. You need to understand HTML and JavaScript. And if you can do that, you will be able to do literally pretty much anything. So what Microsoft has done is they've built two commands, right? The retrieve JavaScript value and the execute JavaScript, I think. In between those two commands, you can pretty much do everything, but they're always 100% JavaScript driven. So you need to know the JavaScript you need to execute to get or do whatever it is you're trying to do. Okay, enough blah, blah. Let's dive in. So let's start off with, how do we get a value from an input? So for today, I'm going to be doing two examples using Bing. Why Bing? Just because it's an easy web page to decipher. And it was set up in a good way that allows us to do this type of automation. But that being said, the same principles apply to any web page. It doesn't make a difference. Just because I'm using Bing doesn't mean you can't do the same with other ones. So let's start with getting a value. What it's doing, initially it's loading, and once it loads, it enables the button here. So Bing is fully loaded. I'm just going to put in some value. I'm searching for Microsoft Access. Okay. So I come over to my button, I press it, and there you go. You entered, I'm searching for Microsoft Access. And you can spot the fact that I even made a typo. So that's beautiful. And you can come, like I said here, and it's dynamic, right? Here I fixed my typo. If I press it now, the typo's gone. So this is in real time. There's no trickery going on here whatsoever. How did I do this? Very, very simply. You're going to see it's ridiculously simple. So first of all, you see I'm using a load event. The load event is doing what? Well, it's loading Bing. That's all it's doing. Then I'm using the onDocument.getElementById here. What is that doing? It's when the browser has fully loaded the page that I've asked it to go to, so in this case Bing, then and only then does it enable this button. Because there's no point having a button to go get a value until the page is actually loaded. So I disable it initially. When the page is loaded, I re-enable it. It's also a great visual cue for your users. That way they know also that the web page is fully loaded. There are other things you could do, obviously, but this is one method that I found works really well. Now, the actual code, how am I getting that value? Well, it's behind the button. I'm using the click event, no surprise there. And as you can see, I'm wrapping a message box around the command. And this is the command you're actually interested in. So me, the form, the Edge browser 0, which is the name of my web browser control. And then we're using which command? We're using the retrieve JavaScript value. And then we're running this JavaScript. That's the JavaScript right there. Document, which is the web page. Get element by ID. So I'm telling it, go find this element on the page. Okay. And get its value. So here it's the JavaScript is saying, go get the value of that element. And this guy here is going to retrieve it and bring it back to Access. And then I just push it to a message box to display to the user. We could be saving this to a record set. We could be putting this into another control, whatever you need to do. That's irregardless. All you need is this guy here, and you can go and retrieve the value of any element very simply. Now, I already hear you. I know what you're asking me. Where the heck does that come from? How did I know element ID blah, blah? I know it's gibberish. Okay, very, very simple. Let's take a look. Once you learn how to do this, you're going to see that all web pages are similar and you attack them the same way. So, let's open up the page. We need the web page to load fully. So what I'm interested in is this element here, right? Where it says search the web. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go down to inspect. And there's a bug here. I've notified the dev team months and months and months ago when it first came out with the new feature, the new control. They still haven't addressed it, but there's an issue here where the first time you do this, you're always brought to the body. So you have to do it a second time. It's the exact same thing. Right click, inspect, and now I'll be brought to the actual element upon which I was clicking. And you'll see here it's telling me that this is a text area. And what's the next thing it tells me? The ID is equal to SB_form_Q. And if you come here, that's what I told it to do. Go find get element by ID. Okay. You see the connection? Oops, sorry. The ID. And we're telling it go find that specific element. So that's how you bind two different elements by ID. On a properly designed web page, an element will have a unique ID. Okay. So that will permit us to uniquely bind to it, and we'll do whatever we want. In this case, retrieve its current value. And that's it. That's as complicated, as simple as it gets. A single line and you're able to get it. If we want to look at the more general code, I didn't really dive into it before. But the load, like I said, I disabled the button initially. I post the URL where I'm navigating to just for a visual for my users. But here's the action where I actually tell it navigate to that address. And then I use the document on complete, like I said, once the page is fully loaded to re-enable that button as a visual cue. So that's it. That's as complicated as it gets to be able to bring back the value from an input element, or in this case, a text area. Next, let's look at setting the value. What if I, instead of bringing back a value, I wanted to take a value from a database and push it into a web page? Well, that is very simple too. I have an example here, the set value. Let's launch it. You're going to see it works the exact same way. When the page is fully loaded, my buttons become available to me. It's the same page, no surprise there. And here I have two buttons instead of one. The first one, set the search term. So where it says search the web, I'm going to now use Access and VBA to push a value to that input element that we just explored 2 seconds ago. So let's press it. Oh, and as you can see, Microsoft Access Modern Web Browser. And the second button, perform the search. So I want to submit this and get back the results. So I can now press it, and there it goes. It's done. I performed the search. And just as a conceptual idea here, we can keep pushing this further. I could now extract data from the page that it's now generated. I can go get the headings, the descriptions. I can navigate page by page. I can, there's no limit here getting URLs and headlines. And so all of that's available to us. It all comes down to JavaScript. But today I'm just showing you how can we input a value, how can we perform the search. So let's look at the VBA behind this quickly. And you'll see, once again, very simple. So once again, I'm using the onload. I'm using the document complete. And then here, each button has its own click event. So let's start looking at the onload very quickly. You're going to see it's the same idea. I disable both buttons. I post where I'm going to just as visual, and then I tell it to navigate. The on document is the exact same thing, the document complete, sorry. And I just re-enable those buttons now that the page is fully loaded. Now let's look at how did I push a value, a string, to the input element. We go to the event, and you'll see it's this guy here. What have I done? I've done the form, the me, the control name, and then I'm doing execute JavaScript, and the JavaScript I'm executing is this. What is it doing? Once again, document, so the web page. Get element by ID. Go get that very same element that we looked at a minute ago. Go get the text area. And now the value, but we're not retrieving the value. We're telling it set it to equal whatever string we want. So in my case, I put Microsoft Access Modern Web Browser, and that's it. That's as easy as hard as it gets. So that's going to push this string to be the value of that element. So the next thing was, how then did I perform the search? Well, to perform the search, we're doing this. So once again, the exact same thing, me, Edge, browser, execute JavaScript, but now the JavaScript changes slightly. And what is it doing? Document, so the web page, get element by ID, SB_form. Where did that come from? Well, we'll look at that in just 1 second. And then we're doing a dot submit. So we're submitting this element. And by deduction, by the name, it's actually a form, which it is. So we're telling it, submit the search form. And that will thus bring back return the results to us. So how did I figure out the name of that element? Well, if we open it up again, and we're going to use our dev tools again, so we'll do the inspect. And we're going to do it twice. Once again, we have to work around that bug. Let's just let this load. Awfully slow here. What's going on? Okay, so it's loaded up for us. We're going to do it a second time. Inspect. Now it's going to bring us down to our text area. And now this is a question of being able to dissect the HTML. So the text area, and looking at my form a little bit here on the web page, you can see the blue highlights what I'm currently on. So I know it's inside a div, which is inside another div. And I keep working my way up. It's inside another div. It has a label, yes. I keep working my way up slowly, and boom. I find out that all of this is contained within a form, which makes perfect sense for a web page of this nature. And then I look at the attributes for that form, and I find here that it's got an ID equal to SB form, SB_form. And that's where I came with the SB_form. And then I know from experience that a form you submit. So I use the submit. I'll also just going off completely on a tangent here, just to show you a little bit of how some of this works when you're not familiar. And I don't know everything when it comes to JavaScript by any means, but this is where Google, Bing, whatever search engine you use, comes in handy. And Mozilla has the developers network, and it's, well, in my experience, one of your best sources of information. So they have a whole section on JavaScript. You can go in there and take a look at it. It goes on for miles and miles and miles. And just specifically, if we're looking at something like the HTML here, you'll see here HTML form element submit. What does it say? Method submits a given form. And when we analyzed the web page for Bing, we saw that we were dealing with a form. So just to show you, you've got reset if we wanted to empty it and start over. There's all sorts of different things, and this specific website is truly an excellent one to learn things like that. Learning about buttons. I don't know, here let's just randomly click on button element, for instance. And you'll see here, it's going to come, and the button element, it's going to give you different information about, attributes and methods and things like that, different things you can and cannot do. Okay. So anyway, this is a great source of information, well worth your time if you're going to get into this any further. So we've gone over here, like I showed you, we can push a string just by making its value equal to whatever the string we want. And then we can submit the entire form. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Very simple. Side note, I had received a question a while back, so I'm just going to put it here at the same time, about how could they move the cursor without manually moving the cursor, move the focus to a different element. Well, it's the exact same general idea. I have an example here. So you use the ExecuteJavascript, you tell it document.getElementById, so whatever element you want to set the focus on, and you just use the .focus open and close parenthesis method. And that will move the cursor to that element, assuming it can be moved to that element, because things are hidden or disabled. There are different conditions in which it may not work. But in general, if you have a normal form and everything's the way it should be, you can just use the focus method. Very simple. Okay, so we've gone over the basics of that. The last thing I was just going to quickly demonstrate, I'm going to use my own website for, is how can we simulate clicking a button? Because we don't always need to submit a form. Sometimes we need to actually simulate using VBA or JavaScript clicking a button. So nothing could be simpler. Here I'm going to use my own web page for this, just to switch it up and show that the same principles always apply. And in this case, what I'm actually going to try, I'm going to click on the YouTube button here. That brings us to my YouTube channel. So let's see what happens. As you can see, it launches it in Edge. Now that makes perfect sense because this is an external website from the originally loaded page, right? So, and I haven't defined any trusted domains. So we get into that whole issue of security and whatnot. And I didn't implement the workaround for this demo. But it works perfectly. It did click the button. It did what it was supposed to do. It's just Access's way of handling external URLs. So enough blah blah. How did I do this? Once again, very simple. Let's look at the design view. I'm going to skip over the load and the document complete. Let's just go straight to the button. Let's look at the on click. And what did I do? If you look, we're using the ExecuteJavascript, the documents of the web page, getElementById, and this time I used the .click. So it's very similar. It's always the same thing. It's a question of knowing what elements have what methods available to them, right? Submit, focus, click. It all makes sense because that's what I'm trying to do. If we really want to dive into it again, nothing being saved, we'll load it. We'll scroll down to the button in question. We can do inspect. We need it to load, and then we do it a second time. And you'll see here button type, and you look ID YTBTN. And that's what we did, YTBTN. So it's always the same principles. We're using two commands, right? Execute and retrieve JavaScript value. And with those two, we can then do anything that JavaScript allows us to do. So it's always the same thing. You come, you dissect the page, you find out what you're trying to click on, enter a value in, retrieve a value from whatever it is you're after. And then once you identify the ID, then you can go about automating it using various methods and properties and whatnot. And that's it. So I hope this helps a few of you out there to understand a little bit how you can input values, retrieve values, submit forms, click buttons, and basically automate a little bit web pages that you're viewing in your web browser control. We will stop there. Hopefully this has been informative, and I guess I will see you in the next video. Please, please, please like, subscribe, share. Anything you can do to promote the channel would be greatly appreciated. And we'll see you in the next video.